I first came here, it was all traditionally cultivated, you know, cultivated, sprayed, harrowed, cultivated, diesel burning type farm. About the first or second year, I can't remember which one it was, we got a contractor in. GPS technology was very expensive. I think this bloke's put up about $100,000 worth of gear in his tractor. The early beelines were about $100,000. He came in, put a ripper mark every 18 metres for us because our boom was 18 metres. So he just chipped the top so we could see where these marks were. So on the first sowing, we just had standard spacing on the tractor that whatever you get, because there's no sort of standard really. It was just whatever the old roughly 2.5 metre was. Every tractor was different back then. So we had a 21 row combine, so it was 5 laps to go into 1 boom spray width. So we blocked off the 2 tines at each wheel track, and we sowed along every ripper mark, just put the centre of the tractor up each ripper mark, try to drive as straight as you could. Then took the blanks out and then filled in the gaps. That's how we first started off. That worked pretty good for a few years, but we could spray, we could spread, and we could basically sow on these tracks. But we couldn't harvest. We couldn't drive the chaser bin on them because headers are all around about 3 metres. They're pretty much standardised on headers now. Nearly every header is now 3 metres. Centres. Not over a width, but that's the centre of the tyres. So we're starting to find nearly straight away the benefits of having these set tracks across the farm. First of all, there's dust reduction with boom spraying. If you know, glyphosate gets tied up with dust quite easily. So yesterday I had the boom spray, but today we just got caught. We want to try and get some urea out, so I haven't got time to change backwards and forwards all day today, which they're talking showers tonight, so you haven't got the boom spray sitting here with. But we've put an extra set of nozzles behind the boom spray wheels. That was to stop the dust, try and get double spray on the wheel tracks because of the dust. So we worked them for a couple of years until the track settled down. I haven't used them now for many years since we've got the track settled down. But after a couple of years we decided then, righto, we've got to run the header on it, we've got to run the chaser bin. We converted the tractor over to 3 metre spacing, so you buy what we call cotton reels on the front or spacers. And we had to buy a bar axle tractor for the back to spread the back wheels out. The old one was a disc type, hub type. So there is a little bit of a cost in the changeover, but it wasn't that expensive. I think it was about $3,000 for the cotton reels. Then you had to change over the tractor. But if you're lucky enough to have a bar axle tractor to start off with, well, it's only half a day's work to wind the axles out. So we've been on this system now with 3 metres for at least 5 years. So we don't get much dust now. We can spray at night time, we can spray when it's dry and dusty. We don't have any dust coming off the wheel tracks for spraying. Another benefit was with years like this year, being so wet, we can actually get on the ground and do our jobs about 3 days earlier, depending on the way it has been the last month. We only get 2 days between rains. So this farm's been set up, say for probably 5 or 6 years on these 3 metre tracks, and we don't drive off them. Bar harvest time with the chaser bin, I get in trouble for doing, but just to keep the header going and the trucks going, harvest time, contractor harvester doesn't understand that you've got to travel from one end of the paddock to the other and turn around and come back. I just turn around and go back. But on a real, basically I call it religious, controlled traffic farm, you're in a lot of trouble if you turn around off the tracks. I have seen photos of where chaser bins have turned around, and in the next crop there's a trail of black oats and ryegrass. Where it's turned around, it's just disturbed the ground. So sowing with disc, you get very little soil disturbance, you don't get too many weeds germinate, but the lugs turning around on the tracks will give you a weed problem. The photos are quite impressive, the ones I've seen. Now, another benefit was the fuel reduction. When we're first setting the tram lines in, we're using about 28 litres per hour spraying. The old tractor, the one we started off with, it was 150 horsepower and it struggled with this tank. It was at full power. Sometimes you couldn't actually get more than 15 k's an hour out of it. It was flat. Once we got the track settled in, back a gear, 18 litres per hour. So struggling at 2 days out of a tank of fuel to easily 3. So that's the benefits there, apart from the obvious is in your crop. And I've got a shovel out there. If we get time, we'll go out there, and I think I found a wheel track. We can dig up a few plants and just see. Normally you'll get a typical J rooting, what we call J rooting, I suppose you understand. Roots go down, hit the bottom of the furrow, and then just go acrossways. You don't get any of that out there. In the summertime when it's dry, you can pretty much dig down probably 10 to 15 centimetres just by your hand off the wheel tracks. It doesn't set hard. It's one of those things you've got to see to believe. I've seen some of the figures that with random traffic, like we would have done years ago, I think it's 25 to 30%, but don't quote me on that. Your paddock ends up being wheel tracks by the end of the season. So it's a fair percentage. It's just only over a certain amount of years you've pretty much got a wheel track over every part of your paddock. One of the talks I've been to, they showed a satellite photo and they could pick up every wheel track from something. They couldn't work it out what it was. They went back and the machine was from about 10 years earlier. What they'd used, they worked out the distance between each round and then the tyre width, and they worked out the machine, it was 10 years since it had been on that, in that paddock. So the wheel tracks can last a long time. Yeah, so our setup, we're working 9 metres. So we sow on 9 metres, harvest 9 metres. Spread, we dry hire the spreader. When the ground's pretty smooth, like say out there, there's not much coverage to stop the urea. We can spread at 36 metres in sort of, not that you'd spread these beans, but in crop that's up sort of knee high, we come back to 27 just so we can get a nice even coverage. So we work on multiples of 3 for spraying. Works out pretty good. The 36 just means a bit more difficult starting off on your outside lap. Your first lap gets pretty much missed, or you throw it in through the fence. The newer spreaders have got, you can close them in a little bit. This one here, you've got to have both together. Now, this one's set up for variable rate. You might be able to see on the far side of the other shaft, there's a sensor, there's a hydraulic motor on this side. The bottom belt speeds up and slows down with the variable rate. We just haven't got it set up because it's only new to us and we're just using it manually at the moment. Now with the boom spray, I'll start off with the GPS. So we run RTK, so it's 2 centimetre pass to pass and over a long time, so it's consistent. So it's repeatable. What's the terms I use? It's 2 different terms. So one is you can do pass on pass, it's always the same, and year on year it's always the same. You can go back down a level to RTX range point. It's 15 centimetres pass on pass. It's about half a metre roughly, day to day. So that's what I work at my own farm. I just work RTK. The subscription's a lot cheaper. With Trimble, this is a Trimble 500. It's a bit outdated now. It's cost $5,000 to update it to go to RTK. That's $2,000 for each password to put into it. You need 2 passwords to get up to that level. Then you've got to buy the VHF or UHF, whatever tower, correction tower you're using, whatever signal they're running. And then a subscription to the tower each year as well. So that gets quite expensive, but for doing this you need it. A lot of people are running only say an RTK 2 centimetre for their main tractors, for sowing if they're trying to inter-row sow, and for spraying, but they might have just an RTX or a free to air to do their chaser bin work or spreading as their second unit. Finding too that the driver fatigue is a lot less with GPS. You would have all heard about that. Yeah, a 12-hour day will feel like an 8-hour day when you're not straining, especially at night time spraying when you've got wide booms and you can't see a foam marker in the stubble at night time. Imagine how hard that is. You're watching out for the foam marker and you don't see the tree over this side. So we can get a lot more hours out of the day for driver fatigue and to be able to see in the dark. So we do most of our summer sprays here at night time. So on the boom spray, we do work 2 sets of nozzles on the boom spray. We'll work a high pressure air induction. So that gives you a very coarse to extremely coarse droplet. That's working for your 2,4-Ds, glyphosate, larger weeds. We've got another line, we just turn the taps over. We can work medium to coarse nozzles then. That's for your contact more chemicals, so when you're chasing your small ryegrass. Your fungicides where you need complete leaf coverage, your gramoxone where your coverage is king. So that's just a quick changeover. So that's another little thing with the, well, if you're doing a precision ag, trying to get your droplets exactly where you want them. It's a bit off the topic for controlled traffic, but trying to get everything working together. I don't like spraying over about 18 k's an hour. If it's flat like that, I'll go up to 20. Once you start getting your height in your crops like this, you go over 15, your droplets start going down on an angle. It gets mopped up by your crop or your stubble, so you don't get enough straight down. So once the crops get higher like this, I slow down to about 15, and they've done some studies and most of your droplets go straight down. If you ever get a chance to go to a talk where they do like a nighttime UV light droplet test, really interesting. They did some, it was about 20 k's an hour. We got out the UV light. Probably 95% of the chemical was stuck on the stubble, so high from the top, nothing really got to the bottom. They slowed down to 15, it was the other way around. Most droplets were going straight down. So just because you don't have to steer it, you got the air conditioner on and everything, don't go flat out down the pack, you got to check what you're doing. Talking to a few there here yesterday, and I said, look, we don't run TV screens, don't read the paper while we've got on auto steer. A lot of people do. I've seen tractors set up with TV screens in them and that, but I don't believe in it. Mate got put through a windscreen on the weekend, texting while he was going along, hit a tree head on at 22 k's an hour. Fair and centre. If he had been off a couple of feet to the side, it would have come through the window at him. Another bloke had a 300 and something horsepower Steiger first year, about the third paddock, watching the TV screen and straight into a tree as well. It does happen. I think there was 3 electricity poles hit a couple of weeks ago, all in the 1 week, all from people not watching with auto steer on. I know my neighbour at Area Park took one out with the lines fell on top of the cab. He's shit himself basically. Took off, the power lines got caught down the drawbar, it's caught the tank and ripped everything off the back of the boom. So, look, they're good, but you really need to keep an eye on what's actually going on behind you. I've seen a bloke going along and the wings falling off the back side of the boom spray, it's fallen off, and he's been dragging it behind him, going up the paddock. You still got to be watching what you're doing. Now, so back to the spreader and the GPS. We're going to go at variable rate eventually. We're not going variable rate just at the moment. I believe that you really need to know why you're going variable rate. So you just don't jump out in this paddock here and say, okay, well, along those trees it's not yielding so well, we'll chuck some urea on there to boost it up. You've got to know why it's not yielding. You know up there it's going to be trees are taking the moisture, you're going to put more urea on it, you're going to do more damage. So until you can actually work out why you're going variable rate, don't go variable rate. That's my advice. You can make problems worse. It could be a subsoil constraint, it could be pH. So all this farm here has been pH mapped. I couldn't find the maps for you for the pH mapping. But every 100 metres here we paid Precision Ag to do a plot every so often. So every sample gets sent off and gets tested individually to do the whole farm. It's about $13 a hectare, I think it is, off the top of my head. If you want to add phosphorus to it, it takes it up to about 17. So that's tools to try and get more consistency across your farm, just trying to squeeze every dollar out of it you can. So any questions so far? I'm open to questions. Feel free. So we're getting NDVI maps done. Try and hold this in the wind. I did have the pages sorted out, but last class just turned them around on me. This map here, if you can pass that one around, fold that around please. That's a 6-year average of what the NDVI is on this farm. That was taken a few years ago, so it is a bit out of date. You can see this one paddock here. When it comes around, you'll see a paddock that's all red, been heavily grazed with cattle for quite a few years. You see the continuously cropping paddocks, quite green, and you see the old fence line still picking up in them. This next one, it's another satellite image. Basically the paddock we're in. That's north that way. There's a house down there, and that's the silo bags basically over there. Not actually a photo of the side. That'll give you an idea of the variation across the paddock at the moment. The next one coming behind, that's the yield map. So the harvester's got a yield sensor on it, so I don't know how much you know about yield sensors and that sort of yield maps. Basically the harvester's got a sensor at the end of the bubble auger or the elevator, depending on the brand of the header, where it is, what it does. Some of them got protein meters in them now, so they can test for protein on the way. The header's sensing all the time, every, I don't know, so many seconds, or so many, yeah, I think it's every so many seconds. It registers what's going against the paddle on the sensor, and a little GPS tracker, so you can plot where the yield is across the paddock. So when you start putting this information together, you can overlay between like your pH, yield map, NDVI, and work out where your problems are, whether it's a consistent problem. Some years you might end up with a waterlogged patch yielding not so well this year, and in a dry year it could yield really well. So it's not a consistent problem. So if you pick up consistent problems, then you can sort of go into the variable rate. Some of the new headers are coming out now. They've got protein sensors and all that on them. So this GPS is quite old. It only does single rate, variable rate, single channel. The newer ones got multiple rate. And you can get the newer ones that will talk to each other. So you can have 3 or 4 headers going in the same paddock, and you can see exactly where he's done, where he's been, and that sort of stuff. And then it can go back to base as well. So the farm manager can get in on there and see how that crop's yielding. And with the newer, bigger headers, it's about $30,000 for a protein meter, I think. You can actually work out when they start the paddock, okay, this load's going to go prime hard, hopefully. Such and such a silo, they're paying more for it, and send the first truckload straight to there. They're all still talking. We can go out and have a look, dig up some plants if you're more agronomy people, and they're more interested in figures, I suppose. So hopefully, I didn't do a trial run. Try and get right underneath the root system. Fairly healthy root system there. No J-rooting, going straight down. So you go down fairly easy there with the shovel. That might actually even be on a little air seeder wheel track there. We go over to another wheel track, try and find a plant that's not damaged too bad. See how hard that is. Try not to cut too many roots off. So the root system follows the track along. That'll turn dry. It's only going to draw moisture really from that depth. So with random traffic, you'll have these sort of plants every so often, depending on how random the traffic is. You could end up with, say, 25% of your paddock covered in wheel tracks like that. So we didn't, the contractor we get for sowing, he didn't originally sow the wheel tracks against my liking. He left them so that they'll bare. What I didn't like about that was that it encourages weeds to grow on your wheel tracks. There's no crop competition, so don't get any shadowing with your crop. A year like this year, your wheel tracks will be full of toad rush. So some people made up a second tank on their boom spray, another line just to spray the wheel tracks. Others made up a whole new unit just to spray the wheel tracks, and that's another job. You got to run around a big tractor and 2 nozzles on each wheel track and spray the whole lot. Also, too, another disadvantage of that was that you end up with a big gap in your crop, and the outside 2 rows had more moisture. They stayed greener for longer. So sometimes, depending on the level of tolerance for green seeds in your sample, you might have to wait an extra week for your crop to dry out just for these wheel tracks. Also too, your trucks end up being quite bare. I don't mind sending a bit of cover on them. Stops water from running down them. Stops a bit more dust. There's all sorts of theories out there. Some people now with their headers, they even drop all the chaff just on the wheel tracks. I'm not keen on that idea. Never tried it, but I just think the chaff's going to hold moisture, so your track's going to stay wetter for longer. It's just my opinion, but I say it smothers the weeds out. Also too, when they don't sow the wheel tracks, you got, where I say 9 metres, you're going to have basically half a metre every 9 metres added together, like 2 wheel tracks, then you're going to have, you know, at least half a metre of crop you're missing out on every 9 metres. With this, we're just knocking down the crop basically on every 27, because after crop's sown, most of our machines are on 27 metres then.